And so the big announcements under the banner of Crossing Over, and I realized after doing that title that some of you are thinking about that program on TV. You know, the guy lost his dog that had 3 legs, was blind in one eye, and had its ears chewed off, and his name was Lucky, and he died. And now he wanted to speak to Lucky, and he got some weirdo to speak to the dead, and that was that crazy program. Anyone remember that? Please just remove that from your thoughts, okay? That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about God's people crossing over into a new season. And so a little while ago, I preached on this idea of all who wander are not lost. That as God's people were wandering in the wilderness, they were camping out there, not because they were lost as much as God had them there and He was doing something in their lives and in their togetherness that He wanted to bring through into the season that He had ahead for them. And so I compared it and I said, the season that we're in is similar to that God has got us camping out. And the last 2.5 years have been something of a camping out season, of coming and resting in God and learning to wait on Him and rest in Him. But this morning I'm here to come and to say that the cloud is moving. We need to break camp and we need to cross over. The season is changing. And it's a rallying call for us in our togetherness to begin to move into the new season, into the promises that God has for us, and to come and to live them out. And so today is the big announcement. And under the idea of what and why, I want to come and land the big announcement for us. And I know all of you are aching and dying for the what. What is the big announcement, you, Steph? And as much as I want to draw it out, I'm not going to. And all of you said, bless you, Steph, bless you. And so I'm going to get it out the way. And you know why? Because the what is not actually that important. It's the why that matters. And so what does it look like? What is the big announcement? Well, there is a shift. And there is a shift that's happening, and it's going to be embodied in the practicalities that we are moving. We are shifting the rhythms of our togetherness, our corporate togetherness, to 2 together Sundays in the course of a month. First and third Sunday, together at the refinery, plus 2 Sundays in fellowship groups, the second and fourth Sundays of the month. And that will be the new rhythm of a Sunday that we'll be operating in. 2 together here on a Sunday, and 2 in Sunday fellowship groups in homes. On top of that, we're going to come and we're going to resurrect our Tuesday rhythm of fasting and praying. And we're going to do a block of 7 weeks. And in those 7 weeks, 2 of them are going to be the 1st and the 7th, bookending that time of prayer, a training time that we want to ask everyone to come and to be a part of. And so there it is. 2 together Sundays, 1st and 3rd. 2 together, 2 Sunday fellowship group Sundays, 2nd and 4th of the month, plus a 7-week block of prayer and fasting on Tuesdays. And with that, it's done. That's the announcement. That's nice. That's nice. Well, okay, we're done. We can go home now. That's what everyone was waiting for and looking for. But the truth is as we come and we look at this, the why is way more important than the what. Why would we come and choose to do this? Why would we come and adjust the rhythm and do that, or not go back to that, or to go and do this? And it comes and it brings me back to, if you remember, 4 weeks ago in our last Together Sunday, I preached on COVID convictions, truth bombs, 5 truth bombs, and there was a conviction on each of those 5 truth bombs. And the second conviction was we have allowed the model of the church to determine the mission of the church rather than the mission determine the model. And when we come and we allow the model to determine the mission of the church, we're allowing the what to determine the what. We're allowing the what, it's the model, to determine the what. The model becomes the mission. And we exist to come and preserve the mission. We come and with the mission is to preserve the model. And I know you want to correct me, but I did mean that. The what becomes the what. The what informs the what. And actually, what we've got to come and do is we've got to come way back to the beginning. Center in around the mission of Christ. What is the mission of Christ? What is the mission of the church? And as we come and we figure that out, it becomes the riverbanks for the why, leading us to what we do and how we do it. You see, most organizations out there start on the outside with the what, then they talk about the how, and lastly, if they've got any presence of mind left, they think about the why. But when you start with the why and you work it out, it then informs the how and the what. And as we've come and we've journeyed, the conviction is we need to come and be reminded of the mission of God, the mission of His church, and from that place work it forward to what He's asking us to come and do. And so that's why I'm saying the what is really the easy part of today and the least important. It's the why. Why would we come and structure our wineskin or our model or the riverbanks or the rhythms of church, corporate church, in this way? And so I'm so glad you asked, because I am reminded of that advert. I think it's an FNB advert, right? Of the little boy who sits there many years ago, I don't know, in the 1990s or 2000s, and he's asking his dad why. But why? And his dad gives him an explanation. Because you have to, buy food, and food costs money, and you need to work to get it. And then he says, but why? And then his dad comes in and says, because the world runs on economies, and there's inflation, and the little boy says, but why? And then he comes again and he tries to explain it again, and the little boy says, but why? And then he says, because, my boy, you've got such an inquiring mind. That little advert. The point is that there were these 3 or 4 but whys that he asks. And this morning, we need to ask why, and not just one why. We need to ask a couple of whys. And so, our first but why, the first layer, but why? Why would we come and do this rhythm? 2 Together Sundays, 2 Sunday fellowship groups, and the prayer meeting kind of rhythm on Tuesday nights. Why would we do that? Well, because in the context of Together Sundays, in this way that we meet together here, there's something that God does in this space. When God's people come and gather together in a corporate gathering, where there's a bigger picture, and there's a bigger identity, and there's a bigger space that motivation, and a bigger ever isolated little group. And there is a bigger vision and a bigger motivation and a bigger energizing that happens in a corporate space like this. And there is a bigger expression of niche gifts that might not be in the smaller groups, that come and get worked out in this space. And there is a power in God's people gathering together in a bigger context. That is important, and we don't want to lose that. We don't want to lose that power, that diversity, that momentum that is generated from these moments. There is an anointing that happens in a context like this that doesn't happen in a smaller group. And we want to be mindful of that, and so we don't want to come and lose that. And so, but why would we do Together Sundays? Because of those reasons. Why would we do Sunday fellowship groups? What are Sunday fellowship groups? You might be asking, you here for the first time? If you are here for the first time, you chose a humdinger of a Sunday to come and join us. I'm so glad you're here. We're a church that is busy figuring things out, and we want to follow hard after God. We want to put Him in the center of what we're doing and what we give ourselves to. And the last 2.5 years have been a journey of working these things out, and it's coming and landing in part this morning as we work out the next steps that God has for us. And so a Sunday fellowship group was a group that meets in one of a couple of homes around the basin on a Sunday. That is not a life group and not a Sunday meeting here and not an online meeting, but a hybrid of all of those brought together, and just a really potent space where we have seen amazing things happen. And so off the back of another COVID conviction, number 3, from 4 weeks ago, I said we have prioritized large impersonal meetings at the cost of authentic community. And the reality is that church is not a building, it's God's people gathering together. And what moments like this do is they create the opportunity for people to come and to hide away and not be known. And that's just not a true reflection, a fair reflection of what community, of what church is. And so what we've seen with our Sunday fellowship groups is we've seen real, authentic community happen. We've seen leaders on the ground. We've seen people in homes. We've seen greater buy-in and participation. We've been seeing a greater scope of serving and contribution, and something of the priesthood of believers, of all believers, beginning to churn up. And we've seen increased relational depth. It's been amazing to see that. And so why would we continue with that? Well, for those reasons. And then thirdly, why would we come and resurrect prayer meeting and fasting and that training element on a Tuesday night? Well, I'll tell you, because that prayer and that training time are two essential elements to build a culture. In particular, a sacred culture that is God-honoring, that God's looking for us to come and to build. And so I've given you the what, and I've given you the first but why layer. Why would we do this? Well, for those reasons. But let's go a little bit deeper and ask the question again, but why? But why? Well, you would know, most of you would know that I believe that healthy systems always operate in healthy rhythms. A solar system operates in the rhythm of orbiting out and back in. A tidal system washes in and washes out, and a respiratory system breathes in and it breathes out. But when we come and we only focus on one side, there's imbalance, and that imbalance can be disastrous, like a tsunami or asphyxiation. And so when we come and we look at the church, it's the same for the church. It's true of the church. You see, healthy church systems always operate in biblically healthy rhythms. There's got to be a biblically healthy rhythm that we operate in. And in its simplest, I would argue that that rhythm is the rhythm of mission and discipleship. And so if you look on the screen, we've got mission and we've got discipleship. And so just as we come and we breathe out, there's breathing in. There's a rhythm that happens. And so what is discipleship? Discipleship is merely knowing God. And what is mission? It's merely making Him known. What is discipleship? It's being in community. It's being in God's community. It's being in the church. What is mission? It's going out of community, going out of God's church and community into the world out there on mission. And there's this rhythm that needs to exist where you're breathing in and breathing out, where you're washing in and washing out, that we need to be operating in to be a healthy, vibrant church that is honoring God and that is effective in the mission that God has for the kingdom of heaven. And so when we come and we do an audit, and this is something of what's been bubbling about in my head, and you, many of you would know some of this just from the last preach, is if we come and we look at these two, at discipleship on one side and mission on the other side, and we had to look at how New Gen has fared over the years in this, then and if we looked at our calendar and what we've done and we had to place them, then I'd have to say that a Sunday meeting, like we have it, like this morning, is largely in community for those to come and to know God deeper, and it is a discipleship moment. And so just imagine that this plinth here is discipleship. And so there we have a big book, and this book represents our Sunday meetings. And then, of course, we've got life groups. By and large, life groups are a place of discipleship. And then we've got our Tuesday night space. Prayer, fasting. There's another one there. We put him there. It's a big one for our community and our context. But we've also got, on Tuesday nights, generally and historically, we've had training. So we've had School of the Shepherd, School of the Teacher. We've had School of the Prophet, Foundations 1, 2, and 3, and another one for good measure. And then we've had men's camps, men's events, men's breakfasts. And we've had, let's get a couple here, ladies' Bible studies, ladies' events, ladies' camps. And then we come, and let's find a couple more. What else have we got here? Oh, we've got Next Gen. And so we've got Kids Church, Route 67, Riot. And we've got Kids Camp, we've got Riot Camp. Let's just put another one on because that's just a huge area. And we got marriage event, parenting course. Put another one on there for good measure. Let me just see. So that other one there, DNA, leaders meetings, the summit. And so we've got a whole bunch of things here that represent discipleship within the church. And I have to come and say that I think we have done well over the years in terms of discipline and discipleship in the life of the church. And please don't hear what I'm not saying here. I'm not coming and dismissing this as wrong. This is good. This is good. This is amazing. But what it does make me wonder, and this brings me to another one of the convictions that came through 4 weeks ago, was conviction number 5, is that we've prioritized the discipleship of the church at the cost of mission to the unchurched. And so when we come and we think about mission to the unchurched, I don't know, do any of you remember Target Week? Years and years ago. I want to find the smallest one I can here. Target Week. Target Week was something in the life of the church that many years ago we said, we're not going to do life group this week. We're going to prioritize it so that you could get to people out there and go connect with people. It was a big joke because it's turning people into targets that we can go and target. And so that was something a long time ago that we did, but that was Target Week. But I'm going to put this one, and this is one of my favorite books, actually. It's Michael Eaton's Exposition of the Bible. It's a great book. I'm going to put that there because we've done Alpha over the years, and I think Alpha is amazing. And we'll put that there. And then also we've done Mission Month, where we go to Madagascar or Indonesia or Zimbabwe, and that's been amazing. So let's put a big one there. And then, I don't know if you remember, we had Wally and Sue Gertzmeyer with us, where they came and did some training with us, and we had them come in and do some things. And then maybe the last one that I can think of, just around here, is in terms of mission, over the last 2 years, social justice with Taste and See has been amazing. So let's put a big one there, and let's give Taste and See a round of applause for just being amazing. And so there have been these elements here, and there might be one or two, but I don't know that I can build it much higher than that. And the point I'm making is pretty obvious. Can you see it? There is an imbalance here. And so in a tidal system, an imbalance and a detrimental imbalance causes a tsunami. You know, every now and then there are imbalances where you get a spring high tide. And it does, and it is big, but it's not damaging and disastrous to the effect of a tsunami might be. And so I don't think it's wrong to take an extra long breath in, as long as you're breathing out at some point. But it feels to me like we may be at risk and are potentially guilty of taking an extra long breath in for too long. And that there is a deficit that exists here. And that in coming through this wilderness, through these last 2.5 years, there have been many things I think that God has been speaking to us about, but maybe the one that we need to be honest about is Brown and in one of the elders. In 2013, I took over leadership from Peter Hart Brown, and in one of the elders' meetings, we sat together and we asked the question, if we knew we were going to die in a year's time, Jesus was coming back, we're going to die, or in a week's time, what is the one thing we would come and give ourselves to? And now we're not talking about you as a father. You'd want to go say something to your kids. We're talking about the church, as the leaders, as the fathers in that community. What would be the one thing that we would feel compelled to go and give ourselves to? And after some back and forth and some rigorous debate, it landed on we'd want to go and share the gospel. We'd want to see people saved. We'd want to come and turbocharge mission. And that heart lives inside of us, and it exists inside of us, and we've tried that, and we've attempted it. But I don't think we have done as well as we could have with it. And so we've got this deficit of mission, I believe. And when I talk about mission, I'm not talking about Zimbabwe or Madagascar or Indonesia. I am, but I'm not talking about that alone. And so what am I talking about? I want to pick up on 2 verses and pick out 4 points from them. 4 points from 2 verses, pieces of scripture. And these are some of the quintessential scriptures when it comes to mission. That if you're going to preach on mission, there's a good chance that you're going to touch on either one of these. And so the first one is Matthew 28:19, right? I mean, it was probably one of the first verses you memorized. You've probably heard 15 preachers on it. And so Matthew 28, verse 19, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I'm with you to the end of the age." And so I want to come and just make 2 points out of verse 19. The first is, can you notice the rhythm? It says, go, no, making him known. Go and make him known. Go make disciples. And then it says, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. That's knowing God. And so right there in Matthew 28, we see the rhythm of a healthy church community, of washing out, going out and making disciples, and then washing back into community and teaching them to observe all that Christ has commanded. And so my point there on that first little idea there is that the call to mission is always in the rhythm of discipleship. It's not just mission. But there is a discipleship element that locks into and teams up with. Secondly, when we come and we look at the word go, I heard this week. This word go doesn't mean go out of your way to this place over there. It means go on your way. On your way as you go. In the everyday rhythm of everyday life, as you go to the shop, as you go to school, to work, to a meeting, as you go about life, go and make disciples. And so the call, on this second little point here, the call to mission is on your way of everyday life. Moving on to another quintessential verse, Acts chapter 1, verse 8. Where Jesus comes, says to his disciples, wait in Jerusalem, wait for the promise of the Father. And then says, but when he comes, you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in all Judea and Samaria, and to the end of the earth. And my third little point I want to make here is on the word witness. It doesn't say you will be my prophets, you will be my evangelists, you will be my preachers, my teachers, my apostles. It says you will be my witnesses. And I want to come and land this in a space where you need to know that not all of you are going to be a preacher or a teacher or a prophet or an evangelist. And that's okay. But every single one of us will be a witness. And there's this unhealthy, toxic thinking that reduces church and the responsibility of the church to the high holy hand, that elevates them and says that they are more important than the rest. Actually, when we come, it says go make disciples. It doesn't say go make prophets or preachers or teachers. It says go make disciples. And then it says you will be my witnesses. It comes and it levels it so low that everyone can make disciples and everyone can witness. You see, a witness is someone that comes and shares evidence that they are privy to or that they are aware of with others. And they come and corroborate a story that's been told. And so all of us, if we have found Christ, have got a story to tell. That I was a savage, but Christ found me. I was broken, but Christ found me. I was anxious and in despair, but Christ found me. I was a reprobate, but Christ found me. A little while ago, of me in the everyday rhythms of life. Like the story a little while ago of me losing my key. My key. It's gone. This key got lost in my office. I knew it was in my office. I searched everywhere in my office. And you know the story. I couldn't find it. 2 hours looking, searching. I couldn't find it, and I was late for a meeting. And Josiah, I was late for a meeting with Josiah, and I said, I'm sorry I was late for this meeting. I couldn't find my key. And then he said to me, did you pray about it? And he kind of looked aside like, of course I prayed about it. That's my job. I pray. And I kind of laughed, and I knew straight away that he thought I was laughing because of course I prayed. And no, I didn't pray. And so I admitted to him I hadn't prayed, and it was as simple as that. Very simple prayer. He said, Father, won't you help Steph find his key? It was as simple as that. And then he said to me, he said, sure, I really feel like it fell down on the left-hand side of your desk. And anyway, later that night, intrigue got the better of me, and I went back to my office, and I went and I looked in the bottom right-hand corner where my bin is. I looked in the bin again for like the 5th time, all over, and I kind of got up, and as I walked back, I was a little bit disappointed, but also a little bit happy. I was a little bit disappointed because I wanted Josiah to be right, and I was disappointed because I hadn't found it, but I was also happy because I had searched that office for 2 hours, and I would look like a real idiot if I hadn't found it. And so I think I was a bit more happy than I was sad. And as I stood there, I looked, and it was exactly where he said it would be. Over there, hiding on the side, upright like this against the books. And can you catch? And so what am I doing right now? I'm witnessing, not to how amazing Josiah is, although you're pretty amazing, but I'm telling a story that's going to land in the space of, I didn't know that, and Joe didn't know that, but God knew it, and God is amazing. I've just witnessed as to how amazing God is. I've just done that right now, and so not everyone can preach, but everyone can be a witness. And so the call to mission is simply a call to witness. And fourthly, I want to come and in the context of you will be my witnesses to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the outer ends of the earth. We have there the context or the arena of mission. And so if the art of mission is simply to witness, then the arena of mission is in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the outer ends of the earth, or the end of the earth, the ends of the earth. And so when I got thinking about this, I thought, and I know I'm going to crowbar this a little bit, so forgive me, but when you come and you think of the outer ends of the earth, it's people that I don't know who are far away and who are different to me. They've got a different culture. I've got to travel a long way to get there, and I'm not going to arrive there and know them. And if we come and we look at the context of Samaria, the Samaritans were, of course, neighbors, very, very close neighbors to the Jews and to the Israelites. And so when Jesus walked to Galilee, he actually walked around Samaria because, he walked through. The rest of the Jews would walk around Samaria because they didn't want to come in close contact with the Samaritans because they were so different and they didn't want to be defiled and all the rest of it. And so when it speaks of Samaria there, it's speaking about people who are who we don't not only not know, but we also are not like them, but are certainly much closer than the outer ends of the earth. And so they would have a different culture that we don't necessarily relate to or that we can access as easily, a different language, a different set of customs. There's a difference there. And so with the last two, we've got varying degrees of distance, but what we have in similarity there is that it's a different culture. People who are different to us. And then we come to Judea and Jerusalem, and in Judea we've got what would be the province that Jerusalem would probably be in, and there we've got people that would be the same as us, who are close to us, but we don't necessarily know them. And so they speak the same language, they have the same culture, they're relatively close, but we don't know them. And then Jerusalem would be an example of people that are close to us. In other words, they're right here, and they're similar to us, the same culture, but we also know them. And so if I had to work it all back, I think Jerusalem, and I'm not going to write a book on this, crowbarring it a bit. I think Jerusalem is a picture of people that we know, that are close to us and who are like us, like our friends, family, neighbors. Their numbers are in our phones. When we see them, we greet them by name. And Judea is people who are like us. Same culture, same language, same customs, who are close to us, but we don't know them personally. We're not going to greet them by name. And those would potentially be people in our basin, in our town, close to us. And when we come and we look at these, I think that we have been relatively good as a church when it comes to Samaria and when it comes to the ends of the earth. But when it comes to these first two levels of Judea and Jerusalem, of being missionaries who are witnessing and engaging the people in our immediate context, I think we have been poor. I certainly speak for myself. And the challenge is this, is that we cannot come and export to the ends of the earth what we don't have at home. And so, on this point, the call to mission starts at home. And I really believe that's the deficit that we're operating in, is the mission at home. And so, I'm not talking about, when we talk about mission starting at home, I'm not talking about going and knocking on your neighbor's door and saying, "Have you been washed in the blood of the Lamb?" I'm not talking about stopping random people on the streets and saying, "Can I lay hands on you?" That's weird. I'm not talking about walking around town with a poster that says, "Turn or burn. Dry of braai." I'm not talking about inviting your heathen friends who really need Jesus to a date night, but actually it's the marriage banquet. I'm not even talking about putting a bumper sticker on your car saying, "Follow close, I'm going to heaven." So if I'm not talking about that, what am I talking about? I'm talking about us just being very normal, very accessible, very engaging, friendly, loving people. I heard this week of a young man who, after 4 years of walking a road of conviction around what God was calling him to, and having to face the cost around that with some of his friendships, after 3 or 4 years, a friend coming and saying to him, "I'm actually engaging with God because of what I've seen in your life." You see, that guy has been on mission. I'm talking about someone this week that I heard about going and connecting with a family member and having a conversation with them that they'd been trying to find the courage to for years and years, but just a very normal, loving conversation about Jesus. I'm talking about someone who sent me a photo this week, and the photo was of people moving into a house across the road from them saying, "Yay, new neighbors." Excited because there's someone new they can go and engage with, that God had brought people into their mission field. I'm talking about a young man who gave up a Monday morning from work to go and be a part of a bunch of people that go into schools and take an hour-long lesson, and who saw a young girl come to faith. And as a result, that young girl, and this is probably one of my favorite examples here, that young girl connected with my daughter, and as a result, she now spends Fridays at our house and goes to Route 67. And because of that and those lifts we're doing, we're engaging with her parents. And so do you see how beautiful that is? And it's really, really normal on many, many levels It's not scary. It's not Christianese. It's not intimidating. It's something that everyone can do. And so the call is for us to be a church on mission, and for us to be a church that's on mission in Jerusalem and Judea, for us as a church to be on mission here at home. And so what I want to ask us to do now, and this is a video clip that I want us to watch, it's a long video clip, and it may take a bit of energy to engage in it, but I want you to watch this because you might be asking, what does it look like that you're asking me to come and give myself to? What we see and what we're going to watch here is what I'm asking all of us, starting with me and Kaz, for all of us to come and to give ourselves to. And this is the bedrock, the basics of mission, some of whom in this community are getting it right already, that can do better still. And for many of us, like me, it's a challenge and it's difficult and something that I need to work on. But what does it look like being on mission here at home with my friends, my family, my neighbors, my colleagues? Let's watch this video.
So, how many of you know Rachel McDonald? Know Rachel? Yeah. Rachel and I have a strange and wonderful relationship. She's strange and I'm wonderful. No, just kidding. No. Rachel, how long have you been around here?
20 years.
You have to talk, you're a vocalist. You know how to
I've never used one of these before. I think it's been 20 years.
20 years.
Since I moved up.
She came here as a college student, and I'm not sure her parents have ever forgiven us for polluting her mind, and she came back and has been with us ever since on staff, and she's responsible for a lot of the stuff that goes here on stage. But today, we want to kind of focus in on some things that have been happening, not as a result of her staff position here at Shoal Creek, but what's happening in her neighborhood. And it's a pretty cool story. So can you take us back maybe before the story started? Give us your mindset about what you were thinking about your neighborhood and your neighbors, and I don't know if this song maybe relates to it or...
It does. Well, I used to get really disturbed when you would talk about knowing your neighbors and helping spread the gospel and share it with people. I didn't know anybody who wasn't already a believer, and being on staff at a church, it was like, man, I don't even have those relationships. And I wanted to, but it felt very intimidating, and I felt very guilty about it. So I would say my first interactions with my neighborhood were like, I had a wrong perception of what that was going to look like. Also, our street kind of had a bad reputation. The cops got called to our street kind of on a regular basis for a while. There was some issues around the corner. There was a shooting that happened recently, and it just felt like if God is wanting me to relate to these people, they have a lot of issues that I don't know that I want to step into, and it felt really scary. I'm also, I would say at least 15 years ago, when I moved to my neighborhood, I would describe myself as an introvert. I have a lot of anxiety about relationships and social interactions, and it felt really scary to me to just introduce myself to someone I didn't know. Like, that just felt awkward, and like people are putting their garages down, and it's like I wanted to get to know my neighbors, but not really. And it felt like the only way to do that is to be strange. Like, who walks up to somebody and is like, hey, so I think I had a wrong idea of what it meant to love your neighbor, and I don't think I was concerned about loving my neighbor. I think I felt guilty that I didn't know my neighbors.
Yeah. So when did it start to change? What was the switch that flipped?
I think I was looking for opportunities. I just didn't know how to do it. And we had a really good friend on my street now that decided to throw a block party. And so I just showed up. I was like, well, I can do that. I can go and talk to people. I just don't know how to develop those relationships. So I met I would say in phase 1 of my neighborhood, we had about 7 young couples on our street that met at that block party, and then she planned a progressive dinner. And so it was like I didn't really do anything to build those relationships. They were just kind of laid in my lap. And then from there, I felt like I could go deeper with people. And then every single one of them moved. Every single one. Like not within like a year. And so then I was like, okay, so we're starting over again. I again know no one in my neighborhood. And I still didn't know what to do, but it was exciting and fun to have those relationships. And I began trying to figure out, like, could I be the catalyst for something happening like she was?
So I know that there was a period when you moved from introvert to stalker. So describe that process for us.
Yeah, all my neighbors who are now friends tell stories about how they met me, and everyone has some weird Rachel story. But I started, again, I didn't know what to do, and I felt very overwhelmed, but it was really strong on my heart that I wanted to be a part of what God might want to do in my neighborhood. And I realized that the mailbox was in my front yard, like the community. So I sort of would time when I like if I saw someone at the mailbox, I would go check my mail and I would introduce myself, or, gosh, what else? I had so many babies within so many years, and I was at home, and in my neighborhood there aren't, or at least I didn't know a lot of stay-at-home moms. I'm a work-from-home mom, but then I was working from home before it was cool, so there weren't I didn't see women in my neighborhood walking around with kids. And so I was in my backyard one day, and a young mom walked by in a stroller, and the way she tells it, I yelled across blocks, "Come hang out with me, you have kids," which I really think I was cooler than that, but that started a friendship with her. And then my children became school age, and it became extremely natural to meet people at the bus stop. And then they started having friends around the corner, and getting to know their network of people made a lot more sense than me trying to develop a relationship out of thin air.
So cool things have happened as a result of, it wasn't like you stuck a sign by the mailbox that said, Jesus is coming, and stood there by it. I mean, just out of some natural relationships, really amazing things have happened. So tell us a few of those things.
So I think for me internally, what was going on is that the good news of the gospel was not good news to me in my life until probably the last 10 or 20 years. So I didn't feel free. It felt like pressure. And so that would come across. Why would I want to share this with someone? It feels guilty. It feels like rules. And when that transformation began to happen in me, and I realized my relationship with Jesus impacts my marriage. It allows me to be highly authentic about being broken and a mess. It allows me to engage without fear of what people will think of me because I'm already approved of. So then those things begin to transfer to how I related to people. And I was super scared to enter into some situations, but my husband and I actually had the opportunity twice to walk alongside a marriage across the street that was going through a lot. And both times ended in divorce, but both times also ended in one spouse asking us how we made our marriage work. And the only way to answer that question authentically was, will we put God at the center of our marriage? And my husband had the opportunity to walk alongside a guy and lead him to Jesus, not in a weird way. It just kind of naturally happened when they were in crisis. And then a few years later, I had the opportunity with a friend to do a Bible study with her on marriage. But it wasn't like I walked up to her and was like, hey, you need Jesus in your marriage. Michael and I had barbecues. We had hung out at their house. I had borrowed stuff. I had put our kids on the bus. We were just doing life together. And one night, we had decided to watch The Bachelor together every Monday night because it's such a great show. And it's I'm really ashamed of myself. But
It's a no-shame place.
No.
Yeah.
So I would go over every Monday night and we would watch The Bachelor, and one night I walked in and she told me her husband had left. And that led to just an opportunity to just ask her what was going on, and then from there, we met with them as a couple, and then later I got to just say, well, do you just want to open up God's Word and see what He has to say about marriage? And so I got a front row seat to her finding Jesus for herself and being able to watch her grow from there. And it was good news. Like, it was, people don't. When we would talk about this, I always thought you were just supposed to walk up to somebody and tell them about Jesus. Nobody wants that. Like, you don't want to do it, they don't want to hear it. But recently I've been learning about shalom, which I'm going to get this totally wrong, but it's like a Jewish word that is peace or goodwill to something, and having a vision of shalom for your neighborhood, and that's exciting. Like, I started dreaming about, what if my neighborhood was a place where people knew each other? That was my first small dream, because no one knew each other. And I would meet people and they would say, oh, I've lived here for 15 years. I don't know anybody. And then it became like we would hang out and we would have fun together, and then we would help each other with childcare, or we would watch each other's pets while they were on vacation. And then during COVID, we would go to the grocery store. I had a Lysol porch drop off one time from someone. And that's what the kind of community I want to live in, where people take care of each other. And I'll never forget, I had a friend who was a professed atheist, a neighbor, and I was just explaining, because she was kind of asking me why I was always talking to people in our neighborhood, and helped start gathering people herself. And I said, I just feel like when you love your neighborhood, you care more about, oh, so-and-so's kids live there, so I'm going to drive slower, or this person's lawn is a hot mess. Instead of calling the city, I wonder what's going on in their life that maybe I could help with. And people begin to serve each other, and then that changes the culture. And for her, that made total sense. And there was no Jesus piece in that for her. But she later moved and started a whole neighborhood thing in her neighborhood. And it was really cool to watch her decide, I want to live someplace where I know people.
Yeah. So what's it done inside you in this process? If you had to talk about the return on investment, is it you put this much energy in and you got this out, or what's it done inside you?
My neighbors are the people I do life with now. I mean, it has been, selfishly, I feel like I have a community. I feel like I have people I can ask to come over when I need somebody to watch my kids. I know they have my back if something goes on. One time my daughter, my 2-year-old, left the house while I was showering and was just walking down the street, and someone returned her to me. I mean, what would have happened if I think it's been life-giving to me to feel like I used to not love my neighborhood, and after the shooting happened or whatever, I had an instance, let's just move, let's just get out of here. And now I feel like it's my home. These are the people I could tell you who lives on every. I have regular interactions daily. I see my neighbors all the time. We are constantly in communication, and that's been great. I feel like it's given me a community. And my husband and I just started one of the I Love You More groups, and we were going to join one, and realized none fit with our schedule. And I just was like, why wouldn't I ask some of my neighbors to do this with us? And that felt normally, 10 years ago, I never would have done that. That would have felt really bizarre, but I have such close relationships with them now, it felt weird not to. So we have 4 couples from our neighborhood going through that with another couple from Shoal Creek, and we leave energized every Tuesday night. And he's like, man, this is so fun. And it's just been really cool to watch. There's one guy in particular that I think is opening the Bible for the first time, and it's fun. I enjoy it. It used to be a chore. It used to feel like not something I wanted to be a part of, and now I can't wait to see more stuff happen. So you got a shot here at people. What would you tell them if someone's back where you were, and that, maybe an introvert, maybe they've got strange neighbors, they've got goofy things going on,
people sticking signs in their yard that they don't like, or flying flags they don't like, or bumper stickers on their car they don't agree with, and that kind of stuff. What would you say to them?
I don't think you have to force it, and it doesn't have to be scary. I mean, he said love your neighbor. He didn't say preach to your neighbor. I think you have an opportunity to live out the good news where you live, and good news means like if someone lives next to me, they benefit. They get a glimpse of what heaven is like, essentially, right? So I think neighbors are uniquely positioned to take little bitty steps to serve each other that we can't do. You can do life with the people who live next to you because they're always right there. So for me, it was just say hi. Like, that sounds stupid, but people don't do that, like, at all. And I think you'll be surprised at what happens. Because I'm such a nervous, anxious person about meeting people, or was, that was a big step for me. And I noticed that once I took that step, people would linger, or they'd run away, and that's fine too. But like, most of them would linger, and it wouldn't take very long for me to find out that they have kids my age, or that they just moved here from another state, and they were looking for connection. And I think I didn't realize that. I didn't think I realized, like, people want the connection we have to offer. They want the hope that we have to offer. They're living in isolation, and so it really is good news. And just being a neighbor or watering someone's flowers while they go on vacation can open the door to just so many things. So you don't have to start at the end. Like, I didn't start, some cool things are starting to happen now, but I really just looked for opportunity and showed up. One thing I think you can do is, when I didn't know anybody on my street, I decided that I was going to reprioritize my social calendar, and I decided I will always be in my neighborhood on Halloween and the 4th of July. I will always, because that's when my neighbors were out. It was like nobody talked to each other all year, and then all of a sudden on Halloween, it was like, here, stranger, have some candy, and and it's like, was bizarre. And same thing on 4th of July, like, people are just out blowing stuff up, and they'll talk to you because they've had a few beers, and they're, but so I just decided, like, we started saying no. Like, when our good friends would invite us over to something that sounded a lot more fun to me, honestly, I was like, no, I'm gonna be in my neighborhood on these times. And that's how
Right there, where she comes in, she says she realizes she needed to reprioritize her social calendar. And then they go and chat for a little bit, and then he ends it off and says, it takes time, and it takes small steps. And so there's a couple of things that I'd love to take a whole bunch of time on, but it's already 11 o'clock, and I know that I've still got a couple of things I want to say, and then I want to ask Kaz to jump up. But as we start bringing this into land, it is going to take time to work something like that out. Why? Because it requires a reorganizing of priorities, but more than that, it's not a program-based system, it's a culture. And so the reason why we have such great discipleship in the life of New Gen is because we've got a discipleship culture undergirding it. And the reason why we're not seeing the results that we could be seeing within the sphere of mission in the church is because we don't have a strong missional culture within the church. And so the question we're asking is, but why? It's the second layer. And the reality is we need to come and build a missional culture. In the secular world, if you want to come and build a culture in its simplest, you need to come and you need to teach it, you need to model it, and you need to celebrate it. Three things. In the context of a sacred culture, what we need to do is we need to come and pray it, we need to teach it, model it, and celebrate it. Why don't you leave that slide on for the next little bit? The next one. In a sacred culture, it's supposed to say in a sacred culture, in its simplest, is created by praying it, teaching it, modeling it, and celebrating it. And so the overarching question is, but why? Second layer, but why would we come and do these things? 2 Together Sundays, 2 Sunday fellowship groups, and this praying block on a Tuesday. Well, there's a deficit of mission and a missional culture. And how do you come and build a missional culture? Well, with these 4 things. And so through these things here, through our Sunday fellowship groups, our Together Sundays and our Tuesday nights, we have the perfect space to come and to pray it, to teach it, and to celebrate it. And so if you just think for a moment, what does praying it look like? Simple. God, give us a heart for the lost. And so when we talk about having prayer meetings here at the refinery and picking them up again, I want to just say that number one, they're not going to be like we've done them in the past. There'll be elements that will be the same, but it's going to be a lot fresher. And with that, I want to open it up to moms and dads and with your kids to come and to join us. And this isn't a space just for moms or just for dads and leave the kids at home. We want kids to come and to embrace a culture of praying and being on mission. And if your kids come and they make a noise, I'm not going to come and stare at them until they stop. We're going to embrace that as a joyful noise and a joyful disruption as we come and put fuel in the mission tanks of this church as we pray God's mission into being. And when we think about teaching it, we're going to come and we're going to teach. What does it look like to be on mission like this? And so for the third quarter, we're going to get someone to come in. We've got Wally and Shirley to come in, and we're giving them that quarter to come and to get us moving on mission in our local area and to come and spark something in us. And they're going to teach us into that space. And so whether it's a Sunday in a fellowship group or in a Together Sunday or a Tuesday space, we're going to come and we're going to start celebrating the stories that come from this. But in all of this, I have to say that I think we're going to do well with praying it and teaching it and celebrating it. But the area that we're going to struggle most is modeling it. And it's not something that we reserve for the hired holy hands to come and do. And I'm standing before you and saying we're committed to this and we are going to do it. But it's not for us to do on the stage. It's for all of us to go and do in life. And we need to model it. It's going to be the hardest thing to do. And so you would notice that within this space, we've got these Sundays and these Tuesdays. And we have resisted the temptation to come and to clutter our calendar and our planner with marriage banquets and all of these other things, parent courses and camps and breakfasts and X, Y, and Z. And as good and as wonderful as those are, we may come back to that in time, but for this season, we feel in the course of the next 12 months that we need to come and give ourselves to building a culture that is not there right now. And we need to focus as much time and energy on that. And so if you're going to come and give yourself to anything in the life of New Gen, can it be a Sunday context? Both a Together Sunday and a Sunday fellowship group, in the big context and in the smaller community context. And if after that you've got more energy, can I invite you to come to our Tuesday night space, which will be, I'm guessing, just because of how I know it to be one of the best spaces in the life of this church where God would come and activate so many of us and empower us. And it's not a place for the few, but for the many, to come and to be trained and then to come and pray this mission into being. If any great things have ever happened over the course of human history, that God's hand has come and moved, it's so often traced back to people that prayed it into being. And we can't come and change and shift the culture by sheer force of effort or by teaching. It's by the hand of God that He would come and touch our hearts and move us in a direction that we're battling with. And we'll come and we'll celebrate it in those moments. But if you've got any time and energy to give to this community, prioritize a Sunday. If after that you've got any time and energy to give, come and prioritize a Tuesday. And if you've got any time and energy after that, can you go on mission with what you're learning and what you're being trained, with the margin created by a planner and a calendar that we've kept empty so that we don't come and create an onerous burden on you and on us that we're so tired we can't do anything. But with the margin, can we begin to reach out to our friends, our neighbors, have a block party, invite your neighbors over, take them a meal, join Hey Pray and go into the schools, go walk around your neighborhood and go pray for your neighbors. Begin to find ways to engage with them. Make some crunchies, make some soup, take it over to them. Start stalking them as they go and put their rubbish out. You go out and put your rubbish out. and be that weirdo who's stalking other people. But with that margin, can we begin to give ourselves to getting on mission so that we can come and model this and begin to have stories to begin to celebrate? And so the second layer, but why? Why would we come and do this? Well, there's a deficit, and that deficit is mission. And it's not that we don't have great programs. I think there are great programs out there, but we don't have relational equity. And that comes from the fact that we are not on mission, and we need to get on mission. And the way you come and you do mission, the way you come and you build a culture, you pray it, you teach it, you model it, you celebrate it. And that's what this rhythm is coming and producing. So why are we doing these things? We're doing these things so that we can come and begin to kickstart a missional culture. But why? That's 3 layers. That's 2 layers. Final layer, just before Kaz comes up. Final layer of but why. Why would we come and do this? It's not because Jesus tells us to, and we want to be obedient little children, although there is that. And it's not because I'm telling you, and I'm amazing, or you want to listen to me. It's deeper than that. Because of love. Jesus didn't say preach to your neighbor or prophesy to your neighbor or evangelize your neighbor or deliver your neighbor. The front end of everything Jesus did was to come and to love his neighbor. And that's what he asks us to do. And so why would we do this? Well, it's because we want to be like Christ, because of love. Because the front end of what God does and who God is love. And we want to come and love our neighbors. More than that, in a few weeks' time, I'm going to double click on this question, why? And we're going to go a little bit deeper, this third layer of why. And so just for practicality's sake, we're going to kick off this new rhythm in August. So Sunday, the 7th of August, is the first Sunday of the month. That will be a Together Sunday. The 21st is the third Sunday. Those 2 Sundays will be Together Sundays in this new rhythm that we're running in. More than that, July is a 5-Sunday month, and I'm hijacking the last Sunday of this month for another Together Sunday for us to come back together. And I want to come and I want to double click on this final layer of why. Why would we go and do this? But I'm going to ask Kaz to come up now. And there's an element of this thing of being on mission that I want to articulate, but I just think she's going to do it way better than me. So why don't you come up? And then just to say to the musos, I think we're going to leave the last song. I'm going to come up after this. I want to land this, and then we're going to finish off after that.
Calling us to as a church and sit on this thing of mission, and I've just felt such a growing excitement and such a rightness in God. Like, yes, of course. I mean, if we've learned anything over the last 2 years, it's this life is so short. It's so short. And actually, if there's anything to regret, it's people going to hell. It's people dying and not knowing Jesus. And if we could give ourselves to something, would it not be that? Would it not be loving people enough to share him with them? And so when I've thought about this, I've just thought, but there's one thing we mustn't miss. We mustn't now think, and Steph said this, he's inferred this, we mustn't think, okay, cool, well, Steph and the elders are going to reach all these people and we're going to pray for them to do that. If God is calling New Gen to be on mission, he's calling you to be on mission, and he's calling you to be on mission, and he's calling you to be on mission. But he's also calling all those little people upstairs to be on mission. And so I don't know about you, but I was certainly not brought up with any kind of conviction to share my faith. Actually, if anything, it was kind of like everyone stay in their own lane, let's not get awkward. But imagine raising our children way before they have fear of man, raising our children to love their little classmates and whatever enough that they would show the love of Jesus to them. And so when we're calling New Gen to be a church on mission, we're not calling the men to be on mission or the women to be on mission. We're calling families to be on mission. And so that means that actually we want to reach out to other families. If we're a family with kids, we want to reach out to other families. If we're a married couple, we want to reach out to other couples or whatever it may be. And so certainly we're trying to get this into our kids' hearts already of, how was school today? Was there anyone who looked lonely? Or maybe they tell a story about a problematic kid. And, well, what do you think's going on with that kid? Should we pray for him? It's generally the boys. Should we pray for him? Maybe you want to ask him if he's okay. Maybe you want to say something kind to him. And actually having our homes as missional places where the kids are welcome and where we look for opportunities to make kids feel at home. Jeez, my kids' friends, once you get them talking, people have tough family situations. And suddenly our home becomes a safe space for these kids. And so when we're talking about a year of focusing on shifting a culture to one that is a culture on mission, where we're not scared to engage people about Jesus, where we're not scared to reach out to people we don't really know, where we see opportunities to share the love of Jesus, we're talking about that for every person in this church. And that goes from the little ones all the way through. And so this is not going to be some kind of focus that takes dads away from their families. No. This is us as a family praying for opportunities, praying for people to love. And I'm so excited about that aspect of it. And we'll bring it into our youth teachings and our kids' teachings and the whole thing. And so when Steph speaks about having kids at prayer meeting, it's going to be stretching, but it's going to be a different culture. And so if you're a parent, I really want to encourage you about taking this opportunity. Imagine you didn't have to learn this now. With all the fear of man that we have, certainly I have. Imagine I didn't have to learn this now in my very, 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 very late 30s. And I could have learned it as a kid, and it could have just been the way I was. Amazing. So our kids have an incredible opportunity here. And I really want to encourage us to be praying for them and praying with them and to give them the dignity of participation in this.
Great. So just as I bring this into land, it's 20 past now. I don't want to be too much longer. But I do just want to put a couple of disclaimers in that this is not a case of being something at the cost of discipleship. I think that it's certainly going to be a longer breath out than normal, but it can't be at the cost of continually blowing our breath out. And so we're conscious of this. It can't be at the cost of discipleship. And this is something that takes time. A culture is something that takes time to build and to work itself out. And so this is a long-term thing. And one of the other things and lessons we've learned in the season is just being around fluid and adaptable as a leadership team and being able to come and to take stock. And so as we go, we've got to be honest about these things and look at them and see where it goes and where it takes us. And if we've got to come and do course correct along the way, then that's also fine. And with that, there's a patience that we're calling us to in this season. More than that, I know that for some of you, you've got a preference around what you want it to look like. And maybe in terms of what this is landing in, it doesn't exactly look like what you want. And I get that. If I'm honest with you, this isn't my first protocol, my preference as a human being and, on my own comfort levels. But when we come to the why, and we dig deeper into the why in the next couple of weeks, I hope that you can get behind that and that you can leave some of your ideas around how things should operate in the what and understand that the why at the front end of this is the why of the song. We want to put Jesus front and center. And so this is about coming and in a winsome way engaging in our community and finding leverage into the lives of the people that we would otherwise not have leverage to have, so that we can come and present Christ and the gospel to them and see their lives transformed and changed because we care about them. And so I get that. I get that this might not land where you are hoping. To be honest, I don't know if this lands in any way or shape or form that's comfortable for any of us. this is uncomfortable. There's one or two of you that do this naturally, but for the rest of us, like me, it doesn't come naturally, and it's going to take work and effort. But I hope you can see the why behind it. It's not the kingdom of Steph or the kingdom of Kaz. It's the kingdom of God. And we want to come behind that, build His kingdom and not our kingdom. And so I asked the question in the beginning, what are you in the habit of doing? And so shamelessly for me, my zip has a habit of not being up. But another habit that I have, and it's happened I think 3 or 4 times, is that when I go under anesthetic, and I come out of anesthetic, there's an anesthetic version of yourself. There's an anesthetic Kaz and an anesthetic Josh, and what happens is your inhibitions fall away, and you're in some ways another version of yourself, where the inhibitions are gone. And if I had a lot of time, I'd tell you about the first time. It's a great story of open back gowns and blood coming out of my mouth and just freaking people, Kaz is fainting. But what happens, and has happened every time I've come out of anesthetic, is that I wake up and obviously there's drool or something rolling down my mouth. I look a mess, and the first thing that I do is I look to the nurse and I say, "Do you know Jesus?" And I start to tell people about Jesus. So I think it's 3 times, it might be 4 times, but I begin to engage them. And there's this love that I have for people that comes out in those moments. And it's a funny thing, isn't it? That I am in the habit of, when I come out of anesthetic, I naturally engage with people around Jesus. And what we're talking about today is that our unthinking habits as a community would begin to front end and be about Jesus, and to engage with people for the sake of Jesus. And so what I think that anesthetic does is it takes away my inhibitions, and it presents me in a way that I don't care what people think or how I look, and I just engage with them. And my prayer is that in this season, God would come and establish within us an unthinking habit of mission, where we naturally gravitate towards mission for the sake of those who don't know the gospel, and that He would come and deal with the inhibitions in our hearts and in our lives that are many. Some of you are sitting there and you have been called by God all those years ago, but you're so comfortable that it would cost too much to now come and go on mission. Some of you are too anxious or nervous, like this lady who's a social recluse and an introvert. And some of you, you're just not wired this way. And some of you are saying you're too old, and some of you are just too comfortable. But my prayer, oh God, is that you would come and you would begin to deal with the inhibitions that live and exist within each one of us, that we can come and be a church that is on mission with you and for you, advancing your kingdom. And as this lands this morning, God, I pray that you would begin to reach into people's hearts and begin to build a sense of excitement. And even for those, Lord, who are battling to find any excitement for this, I pray that you would draw them on the page in terms of unity and togetherness. And that, Lord, for those that weren't here this morning, who are key for our community, that are on holiday or away or just couldn't make it for whatever reason, God, I pray that you would come and begin to fan into flame a desire and a passion for your name, for your kingdom, and that you would help us take the next steps, and that you would come and grace these next steps, and grace all of us in what you're calling us to, and the effort that is required of us. And help us understand that you're not calling us to be perfect or get this perfect, but simply to be willing, and that each and every one of us can be willing witnesses that on our way in everyday ordinary life can come and share you. In the mighty name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. God bless you all. Thank you for coming out. As you go home, won't you just steward these things and steward these thoughts and think about them and allow God to build excitement within you. And over the next little while, we'll start to put some details out around next steps and what it looks like, some planners, calendars, dates, how that's all working. But we're looking forward to a great launch of a new rhythm starting in August. God bless you all. Thank you very much.